how do I make this short and sweet? Okay, so let's start with Happy New Year. And I really wish you everything that you are wishing for yourself. So some changes will happen on my basically channel. So make sure that you're subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, then you see this like thing in the right kind of like corner, bottom corner, just click on it, because you'll be getting some series and some invitations that other people want to have an access to. They're not going to be posted like publicly. And you know, also, if you haven't already, join me on my mailing list. The link to it is my description, because that is specifically important for those of you who really want to take advantage of private readings, or who even want to take advantage of Reiki and all of these other add-ons that I actually send to my subscribers. And before we move right into the action, let me just ask you to support the channel. They're like already made, they're already out. There is $29.95, I believe, for one sign, and $59.95 for all. So you just have to go with www.cattarot.ca/annual, and basically the rest of it is history. It's going to be the order, and you get it from me as soon as I see it in my mailbox. I send that reading to you. So that really supports the channel, and this particular year I'm going to be helping lots of animals who actually cannot fend for themselves. I'm talking about all the strays all over the world that, you know, really need that really loving touch, and I really hope you can help me in actually pushing that forward. You know, maybe it is just a drop in the ocean who really cares about a kitten, who knows where it is, somewhere in Turkey, somewhere in Siberia. But you know, it matters to that pretty kitty that actually the life, the leg, whatever is needed, an eye is being saved. So without much further ado, let's jump into the reading and see what January brings for us, because this year brings lots of changes, and hence if you order your Taroscope, you're going to know all about it. So let's start, my dear friends, and see where January takes us. Hello Pisces, I'm trying to do your reading, but there is like somebody here who definitely wants lots of affection, and so maybe something like that is going to be the case with you and what's going to be happening this particular month. So let's start. Like, you're having here the Wheel, or Wheel of Fortune. This card is just generally one of my big karma cards. I'm kind of like seeing that as kind of like clearance, right? The central theme is like that cyclical change, and these cards here are not necessarily the cards that we see today in our generic Rider-Waite combination. Visconti Tarot is one of the oldest ones known. I believe it dates back to the 15th century, and we kind of like see basically almost like more motions over here. In the regular decks, it's kind of like showing the wheel surrounded with the fixed signs. So when we are kind of like looking at this card, it is clearly that at times this actually can feel very kind of like terrifying. It's like, doesn't matter if we are like rising or basically falling, right? When we are finally balanced basically on top of the wheel, that's where we really all want to be. There is that moment of crystal clarity, right? But keep in mind that only part of the wheel that is actually not going up and down is basically the hub, which really represents your eternal self, as you can see. So every one of us at some point is going to be on like this kind of like different levels. Things change, of course, right? Do you really like the things that we look right now? Enjoy while it lasts, because you know that will change too, but you're going to be on the top for this particular month. When I see this card, because it is one of my designated karma cards, this is like one of those predestined things, right? It's fundamental change that is imminent. Positive benefits you gain during this period could really last a long time. So this is really suggesting a certain course of action that needs to harmonize and kind of like this music card is really, it's kind of like interesting because you've got this rune kaunas, which actually this is reversed. It goes this way, but this is going this way. It's almost like telling me this really needs to connect, right? So keep in mind that you have to define what you want, because, you know, and also what is currently possible. It's going to be really important to kind of like look in that direction. So the way it goes with the Wheel of Fortune is it follows the flow of events, right? So physical moves or spiritual awakenings or dramatically changing, I don't know, social patterns. It's something that usually you expect during this transition, right? And kind of it is a safe place for you to be. You're kind of watched and protected as you go. The big changes are happening, but there is like around and around, and you're going to learn a lot. You will also learn it really quickly because this is really quick sign, and you're going to absorb this. You know, sometimes we get a message and sometimes it's just like it's not something that we can absorb. Because Kaunas is basically the rune of passion and rune of insight. It's also rune of clarity, right? When it's reversed, maybe the light is not clearly there, and I really think you're retrieving to that place, the softer place, the place that you really like, that, you know, it's not a dramatic approach, rather it is subtle approach to things, sort of like a soft place to fall. You need to remember that certain things might be happening that would make you go in a different direction. So it's kind of like letting go of the past, and guess which sign is the most notorious about having difficulties with that. Yay, 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 yay. So, but you're not going to find it difficult. You're just going to feel, well, you know, it is time to move forward. It is time to move over, right? So you need to ask yourself, where do you really want to go from here? And I really think the answer is going to be very simple for you, because music is harmony and doesn't have to be just the music that we produce, because the nature has its own rhythm, its own music, right? It is basically something that is going to create that equilibrium, that balance, and yes, that feelings of harmony. The challenge is to sustain that inner kind of like space, even when you see some kind of like dissonance in the outside world, right? So you have to kind of like observe what is happening inside and what is happening outside of your mind, out of your heart, and out of your body. So let me right now shuffle the cards, and we're going to see the general part, and then it's going to be the third part where I'm actually really going to look into relationships, sort of like a love thing. It's going to be a special spread that I have designed both for singles and couples, and even those who are just like wondering what he or she is thinking right now is covered. So let me start shuffling cards right now. Okay, Pisces. Alright guys, so what do you have? You have Four of Earth, you have the Emperor, you have the Hermit reversed, the Emperor is also reversed, you have Nine of Sea reversed, and you have the Floating Cat. Now this is really interesting kind of like concept, because we have two nines, we have two fours, right? So I really think like when you kind of add all these cards, when you go down to, you get the number 20, and 20 in tarot is the Judgment card. Judgment card is also about cleaning karma, cleaning things from the past, and there are like really elements over here that need to be addressed. So in this card, Four of Earth, we see Kitty really proudly displaying his or hers toys. I just have to say this word, and Steffi is on the table. So the whole idea here is like, what's the point? Yes, you might have everything you need, you might feel content where you are, but isn't this the point to engage and re-engage? Maybe you're kind of like feeling, oh my goodness, I want to get off this wheel, I want to kind of like start finally moving forward in some kind of direction. Generally, that card really shows up. You maybe feel, especially with relationships, or the relationships could be private relationships, sort of like one-on-one, boyfriend girlfriend kind of a thing, husband and wife, but those relationships also can be something that relates to work, right? When the Emperor really shows up, it really talks about inner maturity, something that, you know, it's kind of like hard to put a finger on because it is a different thing for different people, but there is like something over here that really needs attention. It kind of like feels that maybe you're feeling that either somebody is controlling you, or that you're losing control over something, or you might meet somebody this month who might kind of like be very charming. This person can also do what you know, is called hardcore press, kind of like dating you all the time and calling you until, I guess, you sleep with them and they get what they want. Interestingly enough, they're nowhere to be found, so they were there like every day, in and out, in and out, and then suddenly nothing. It's kind of like one of those ideas when you're like revisiting your texts and you're wondering, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I say? What did I cause? Especially if you're a woman. If you're a man, they kind of like react a little bit differently. And it's maybe leaving you with that essence of, oh my gosh, I don't know where I am. And I maybe don't know what makes me feel happy. It's one of those things that somehow the image that I have in my head is like you walking a tight rope, and on the tight rope, like, you know, you're actually very certain that you can do it, you're very certain that you're balanced, but you get there and that brain is affecting you, looking everything that is like below you, like, oh my goodness. So you're going one step forward, one step backward, you're like kind of like rebalancing over here, right? We see the Hermit. Look how cozy and comfortable this person really is. It's somebody who basically is doing things that is just very, you know, soul searching, that is very much things that you really need to learn, the things you need to find for yourself, kind of a thing, right? But it is kind of like reversing. So this is a step back from this. Somehow, you know, you want to move forward, but then maybe things from the past are still going there. Did you ever try to spin something around a wheel and then you're trying and trying, or unscrew the screw and it's just like not going, right? Kind of going there, and then you go a little bit back, then you go a little bit forward. That's kind of like what I'm feeling for you this particular month. In this particular scene, we see Kitty and all the pleasures, dreaming about everything, right? Look at that. It's the kittens, it's the mice, it's the birds, it's what can I do, like the food. It's one of those dreams when you really wake up so energized and so kind of happy. But in you, for you, it almost like feels that you're finding something is insufficient, something is amiss, something that you really maybe cannot put your finger on, that you really want. I really feel that this is one of those times that is really telling you, well, yeah, things maybe didn't work out that well in the past, but nonetheless, this is now a call for you to go to the future. And sure, things can reappear and come back, and you might deal with them, right? That's kind of like, how is your engagement? Now you're getting this complete clarity, and look at in this deck. He has this kind of like little devil ears, and whenever we're on the top, we just like feel we gotta stay there. This is where I am. I work so hard to get there. Next thing you know, it's kind of like flop. Another thing, I don't know if you're seeing that, it's really talking about the levels of maturity. Look at the child and somebody older and then older, and then we see kind of like old age, which definitely, right, you're probably thinking the same I'm thinking. This is about life, and the Hermit is about life. You are really going really deep in essence of who you are, not to sound too sophisticated, because you guys, yes, it's going to be somebody wooing you, it's going to be maybe a live music event, it's going to be something that's going to be kind of like that adrenaline rush. You're going to get your dose of dopamine, feeling really, really good, right? I can see that. But there is like almost like something that is feeling like forced, because the floating cat and the hermit have a few things in common, and you're having like 3 majors in 5 cards. This is really a biggie. We have in tarot major arcana and minor arcana. When the major arcana shows up, it's really talking about the situations that, you know, are not really optional. You know, would you like the chocolate dip on your ice cream? Maybe not. Well, in this case, that's what you're getting, kind of a thing, right? So these lessons are preordained for you. These lessons are built in kind of like the structure of your life, what you really want to learn it. Each of you might learn it about differently. Here it is about positioning who you are in regards to the other people. What do you need to sustain yourself? This simply can also talk about your health habits that maybe you feel that you kind of like let go in that direction. It could simply mean that you feel that in your workspace there are like things that you really want to change. Maybe you want to be more in a position of doing things your way versus continuously kind of like collaborating. I'm seeing here a really independent streak, and anybody who is trying to pull the wool over your eyes is going to be really, really surprised. Now, they might not really realize, but this card really tells me, look at this, the floating cat, and it's seeing things from a different perspective. But we do know that this cat is going to land on its feet, right? And I was like doing like the photography with Safi, like short bursts. It's just like amazing what they do. They jump from this position and they twist and turn, and you can see this elegance, and they're like catching something on the other side and landing really nicely on the other side. The Hangman is one of these God cards, and the Hermit is another one. The only one we didn't have is the full card. So 2 out of 3. This is really telling you something, and that's that divine intervention. This is kind of like, look, don't push things, don't feel bad, you are exactly where you need to be. The floating cat always talks about needing to see things from a different perspective, wondering, like, I mean, and this probably goes back to you blocking off some people or some circumstances, kind of like, is this maybe the time to kind of like open up? You know, the good thing is when we want to regain control about our life and we want to regain what we are doing, that we are feeling protected, we are feeling safe, we are doing things that we really want to do. But the very thing that actually worked sometimes can actually really explode in our face. And this is kind of like saying over here that you really need to kind of relax and let loose and kind of like feel really good in going forward. This seems to be almost like the name of a day over here. Maybe the things that you used to enjoy are no longer enjoyable. Maybe there is like something connecting literally with music, even though music more or less talks about the balance and finding that things are right? Because music that you like, I might not like, and vice versa. So when the floating cat arrives, we are really talking about, okay, you know what, let me try to figure out what would have happened. You may be almost like playing scenarios in your own head. What if kind of scenarios, you know? It was like, for one, I think here, very popular Come As You Are kind of a thing, events. Basically, you would imagine who you're going to be in 5 years, and you will behave to be that person. Maybe have the business cards just to see how that really feels. And this is kind of like going through the spectrum of possibilities, where you are looking not only how you would feel, but also what you can do to contribute to the situation. And I really feel this is almost like going through some kind of like exit of things that maybe have been useful at some time, but right now there's like time to open these gates. After all, sharing these toys with somebody that you really care for could be fun. Just don't give them to everybody everything, just kind of like do one toy at a time. So let me clarify a few cards, given that we have so many majors over here. So let me see, Pisces. Why is the Emperor here reversed? The Emperor for Pisces, the Emperor. So we see Lord and we see constancy. Now, when I see this card Lord too, in this deck, this always talks about somebody important, somebody established, or somebody we put on a pedestal. So somebody probably woo you, somebody probably felt like the right thing. This guy also, it's either a marrying kind, or he is married, or he is in some kind of relationship, which I really think it's the case here. So maybe you kind of like have this burn on your skin of something that happened in the past. I mean, you give your entire heart when you give, and I do know I'm a Pisces cusp, right? And when we give, there is like no limit to it. And what we really don't do, we don't strategize. We, like, this is not earth sign that we kind of like, you know, a quid pro quo, something for something kind of a thing. No, it is just kind of like expected. Hey, you know, what is mine is yours, come over. And then when this doesn't happen, it comes like really brutal awakening. It comes as a shock, right? Because this is definitely encouraging. It's telling me that you're realizing what went wrong and what was your role in things going wrong, and that Rome is not built in a day over here kind of a thing. Look at her, she's having all these boulders and whatever this is, broken pieces that need to be put together, but they will be put together. You can look in this picture that she's like totally really into it, that she's going to do it. There is like this passion. What is linking these three cards, they're all kind of having that red motive, right? And even though you're not going to, I really think what's going to be a little bit different shift this time is that you're not going to go all in kind of a thing, right? You will be observing people from a distance. Yeah, you might kind of like be longing, and I want this and I want that, but it's going to be lots of kind of like observational powers in this particular period. So let's see that Hermit reversed. What is that all about? Look at the Prison card, and then we have Widower reversed. To me, and I guess you're going to laugh, and that's another part of my cusp, Aquarius, I always see this card as the marriage. Like he's stuck. You know, this is it, the way it is right now. And interestingly enough, this could be your marriage, and hence you're trying to approach things in a kind of like different way, right? Or you're feeling lonely in your marriage, because the Hermit sometimes feels like loneliness, feels, why am I alone in all of that? If you're not in a relationship, it kind of like, maybe it really indicates dealing with somebody who is in one, and maybe somebody kind of like can't make their own decision. And you're wondering, like, why am I waiting? Why am I waiting? I'm being sad about this, and I cannot get over something. So there is like still, I feel the past, and it is the past that you are really going into is something that worked, right? Well, of course, you never get sad about, hey, you know, these great days are so over, yay! No, we kind of like don't do that, right? But the truth is that you will do something different this month. You will kind of shift, and it's going to be realization of the situation that is kind of like stuck in the process, but also that, you know, going down that memory lane, it's going to be really hard. I mean, that's my problem. I kind of like have always in my YouTube suggestions all these like poor abused animals that I'm giving so much money to, but that emotional impact is like so hard on me. I sometimes cannot recover for days. Being an empath I am, so I really have to avoid it. And this is really telling you, you know what, you have to figure it out, the comparison, what is better right now that it hasn't been before, because that's going to be the essence that is going to let you kind of like think from a different perspective, or where most people don't ask themselves, what were you thinking and what was I thinking, kind of a thing. So let's check that Hangman or the Floating Cat over here. Hangman and Floating Cat. Misfortune and foe. Almost looks like that this is like a full circle to me. This misfortune card is like Tower card in tarot, just worse, like about 10 times worse. So looking at some disaster, but it is good you're looking at it. You are not in it, right? It could have been, I don't know, I keep getting this third party, like the foe, just definitely talks about somebody you are like locking horns with. It could be enemy, right? It could be somebody, look how she's sneaking in it, right? But you're like actually really trying to get understanding why certain things happen. It's not the question about things that happen. It's not a question about, hey, you know, certain things just like burned down. It was a crash and burn situation over here, and maybe somebody just like stepped in, and maybe you're blaming that person, right? But look at this clue over here. Somebody else maybe was involved, and I'm wondering if, and you know how we people always do it, we redirect our anger at a person who, for example, if we want somebody and this person, let's say, has two partners, we blame the other person instead of the person who kind of like couldn't keep his pants up. And this is that one of those realizations. Oh my goodness, what was I thinking? No, that's different, that's different. And then, you know, this whole month is going to kind of like be pushing you into back and forth, back and forth. It's kind of like wheel will be spinning, and keep in mind that no matter where you are, it's going to be changing. It's going to be changing, and you're going to start realizing certain things, because almost like you're given this divine energy to kind of like harmonize, and hence emotions are not going to be overly strong, because this card can be very strong, but luckily, you know, you are protected over here. And okay, let me now look into your relationship spread. So as I mentioned, this spread is going to have kind of like really it has interesting concept where you know, we can address everybody, everything that you're like really asking for. So if you're single and looking, we can look into that. If you are you know, single and not looking, then you can kind of like see what is the person that maybe you were interested that certain things didn't come through doing or thinking right now about you. And then also we have the part for the couples and this generic meaning for this particular month, what kind of like needs to be learned. And no, I don't want like 2,000 cards. It is a bigger spread, of course, but let's do it. Pisces, 4, and I'm going to shuffle, right? So sorry about shuffling sound. I usually like to give you the music, and this time I gave like this balanced music in the background to kind of like be there for us. Pisces, January 2019. So, ooh la la. Oh, they are really spending lots of time thinking about you. Let's do this. So, singles and looking, let's see what's happening this month for you. That's King of Swords. This is kind of like deciding, hey, you know what do I really want to continue with, what I don't want to continue with. That's kind of like that Libran attitude. Let's kind of like find things that work. Let's find things that you know, we can meet on it, like that compromise. But it's also about making kind of like important decisions, right? Making decisions that sometimes are right decisions. Sometimes deep inside we really want what we want, right? Like, I mean, it could be flush, kind of like desire, etc. But in this particular case, and that goes for both people, for everybody, basically, in relationships and not relationships, this King of Swords is really somebody who would kind of like really think through things instead of feeling through things. So the singles, you have the Empress reversed, you have Six of Pentacles, and you have the Magician. This again goes down, like when it adds to 10. You guys are clearly going to go through motions. You clearly are going to, and of course, how did I do that? It's almost like impossible to do it. You guys are kind of like going to feel on top of basically the things. You might feel a little bit kind of like displaced, because again, I'm seeing this repetition of, like, it was the Emperor over there, but in this particular case is the Magician. This kind of like worries me, because you know, it is like somebody making you feel great, right? And again, I see this Libra motive. In particular, be very careful about Libra, Gemini, and Taurus, and Earth signs. that kind of like I would really focus on it, because not necessarily would really work in this time frame. The Empress reverse talks about a clingy nature, and Empress is very similar energy to the floating cat, to the hangman that we had over there, which in fact should help you, like if you kind of like almost like reflect the question to you when you start feeling something odd. And we usually, for example, we're trying to be with somebody and they're avoiding us, and we try to compensate by thinking that we did something, so we want to do more, and then they more and more avoid us. So the trick is to go backwards, not go forward, and sometimes we get caught kind of like over achieving, etc. The Magician is saying that, look, no matter what you put out this month, you're going to get it. So be very, very careful about kind of like doing things that are really not beneficial for you. You need to be on this pedestal. You shouldn't be doing any things that are not necessarily moving forward. This really tells me about some notorious bachelor who's going around telling you that you're the perfect woman, and he's having somebody else on the side, and he's just going around like when he feels like it. But I do think you're going to take this with a grain of salt. You're going to say, well, I was like having my toys in my little garden for a reason, and I know, like, I'm in your kind, I know it, and I'm not going there anymore. So let's see, like, the partner maybe that you're asking, inquiring, what are they thinking, what are they doing. They're having this Six of Cups, right? So now they're like already 2 sixes. There is like this soulmate kind of like feel. They are definitely thinking about you, but it's kind of like, looks like they're a type who reminisce a lot. I do think that this partner could be really married, or it could be either married or, look, there is like this perfect woman over here, and there is like this marriage and kids card over here. So there is like something really, really going on over here. This does go down to, there is attraction, there is connection, but there are issues. And I'm wondering, who is this Queen of Pentacles? Are they committed already, which should be probably the most obvious, easy explanation, and hence they feel like they're a little bit stuck in their marriage and don't know how to get through it, and hence they're living their life through maybe other people, through communicating people. So instead of like having a normal date night, they would kind of like be in a fantasy land. Oh, like, we're going to be together forever, and you're so beautiful, and it feels really good, but it's not something that they're going to think of the next day, because the next day, almost like they're escaping from that realities of their own life. The Queen of Pentacles, it could be that there's like somebody who is like really dominant. There's like this dominant force in their life, and at this stage they are really not able to push this forward. So I do see that. Are they interested? Oh yeah, very much, but also they feel highly suppressed. So let's see over here what the couples have. Look at that. Every single sign this particular month had repetition in this card of this card, and it's, look at how many more cards I actually really have. So the karma card showed up here. So couples, you have 2 majors, you have, and there is like, remember how I said you had 2 God cards and there are 3? Well, voila, there is the 3rd one. So the Wheel of Fortune is reversing over here, and the Fool card is reversing. So it almost looks like you're kind of like backtracking over certain things, right? This is a good card. It always talks about sort of like our perception on how things should go. We all have our own method, and we always joke of other people's methods, sort of like, no, let's do it my way. And sometimes there is like this control issue over here, and that could be the case that you feel that you have to do a certain way differently. But you're going to maybe also realize, and that's where that floating cat was, realizing, okay, maybe I have to approach all these issues differently. It does feel that it could be some essence of again, when the Wheel of Fortune shows up, like, it's not really much you can do. You're being pushed through circumstances, and to some extent you might feel foolish or something really not going your way, but you have to trust this, that actually things are going. This is kind of like that universal swords. When the swords show up, they're like done for clarity. It is like, you know, the wind. It's something that clears it, you know, when we call it just nuke it, right? Like you just start from the scratch kind of a thing. But in your case, you're not starting from the scratch, and that's the theme that keeps repeating over here for you. There is like this essence of hopefulness. There is this essence of harmony. Yes, the light is lesser because I really think this partner is affecting you to some extent, for both, I would say. But not always that we have what we want. Is this the Rolling Stones? Sometimes you get what you need, right? And what you need actually eventually will turn out to be what you want. So let me see the universal messages over here. Oh my goodness, this is about learning the lessons of love. Look at this, the Seven of Cups. Oh my gosh, what choices do I have? What do I do? How do I go forward? Like, we didn't have cups up to this point. The partner is like somebody who is a cup, and kind of like they are like this lovey-dovey kind of you know, perception, sending you all these vibes. But you're really wondering over here, like, what's going on here? You're actually really feeling a little bit stuck. So some of you, it's kind of interesting because look, we have both love and disappointment, right? So there's like somebody reaching out, there's like some kind of connection. I'm really wondering if this is also pulling in the couples over here and saying, hey guys, be kind of like careful how you approach things, this particular thing, because disappointment might be just like temporary, because remember, you'll be kind of like spinning on this wheel. It is like something karmically that you're resolving, and there is like a need to go in some completely new and different direction. So the Three of Swords is sometimes talks about rejection is God's protection. It just came to me given that you had all three God's cards. So it can talk about something feeling not being fulfilling. But again, remember how you had these cards feeling, well, I don't want to be on my own, I don't want to do this, and yet at the same time I don't want to engage. So you have to make your mind up on that level, in which direction you will go and how will you go about that. So that's going to be really utmost important, because as I said, it's almost it's really not that you can really influence. You will just simply have to buckle up and the ride is going to be there. So I definitely see these like so many connections. I see the sixes, I see the tens. They're like something that needs to move forward. So you kind of like need to cut out anything that, you know, didn't work, like, you know, anything from the past, and establish or re-establish, rather to say, your own harmony. So it is really interesting, but this particular month you'll feel more like an air sign than a water sign. And air signs usually put you in this kind of like stuff, right? You guys usually get this like Five of Cups, the guy crying their eyes out, and air signs get really, really upset. But nonetheless, even if you're in this situation, just remember this is done for a really good reason, and the good reason is for your own protection, right? To move forward. So just also keep in mind that this partner or some partner here can bring this kind of like nightmarish sensation in the whole situation. You need and you want to receive complete clarity. One thing is like having those songs and lovey-dovey and I love you and here's the poem for you and flower, but we sometimes really want to know, hey, where are we going, right? Because the Fool card over here, and especially the couples, right? The couples kind of like reach their destination. They're already a couple, but this is not to say that they don't have their own thing. And usually the biggest loneliness that the person experiences is when you are in a couple. So this might be a little bit the case for everybody, but I do see that single, almost at Aries, I don't know why I wanted to say Aries, single Pisces will have something really clear, big burden, something will actually really start moving forward in a really, really good way. This is kind of like really talking about reassessing your approaches and how to do things. So I really hope, you know, this resonated. I really hope you're getting something out of it. If you guys, you know, felt this way, please subscribe to this channel. And I also ask you please to put your, thumbs up or thumbs down, depending on your opinion. So please also support the channel with my annual tarot scopes, and also support is like, animals that I'm supporting through it. And lastly, if you want to get a private reading with me, you can find me via my website, cattarot.ca. And until the next time, my sweet Pisces, you know that I love you. You can find me on Instagram and tarot with my daily tarot, so hopefully that helps. Love you. All the best.